Allô, Nissan? Hey, grosse tempête, hein?
Hey, Karine, oui, je sais, les vilains bonhommes de neige sont de retour.
Mais avec le Nissan Rogue à traction intégrale, c'est pas stressant.
Exact, il est conçu et testé pour nos hivers. Oh, Karine, il y a un bonhomme dans le Rogue.
Ah, c'est correct. J'ai allumé les sièges chauffants.
Ah, bien joué, Karine. Maîtrisez toutes les conditions. Louez le Rogue S 2026 à partir de 0,4 jusqu'à 36 mois, incluant une réduction fidélité de 0,5 pour les clients Nissan admissibles. Jusqu'au 2 mars, sur approbation de crédit, les conditions s'appliquent. Détails chez Nissan.
I came across the story the other day and thought we need to follow up on this because the first thing that struck me was the headline, which I assumed was completely the opposite. So let me give you some background. Turns out Gen Z or Gen Z is the first generation to have grown up. We know this with social media, but here's the part that I didn't fully and don't fully understand. You'd think that would make them open to the online world that they were born into, but instead what we're finding out now is they've begun to realize, I guess, just how much that online life exposes their lives to anyone and everyone. Radmila Yarovaya is a writer and political researcher and has written the piece recently on this. First of all, I want to let people know, when I read your piece, you started by talking about, having sat in a class when you were a preteen. How old are you?
I'm 25.
Okay, so you've been through this basically your entire life, right? This whole idea of living online.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I want to go back, if you can, because you talk about in the piece you wrote the lessons you learned starting back then when you were just, very, very young. We call it a preteen. What was that lesson?
Yeah, I think it was very interesting. When I was growing up, like Facebook and Instagram were just launching. They weren't yet what they are right now, and nobody really knew what the heck was going on. So there was a lot of caution that was imposed to us by the adults in our lives about how we should behave ourselves and what we should do and what we should share. So I think that personally, and based on the people and the groups around me, we grew up with this very, very distinct level of caution surrounding what we can and what we cannot show. Especially, being preteens and teens, it was very, very much at the front of our minds, like the dangers that we that we put ourselves in by putting ourselves online.
It's weird as I hear you say that. I thought maybe we didn't even know enough back then to warn kids that, this was a dangerous thing. We all accepted it. I mean, the older generation did. You know what? It's online. It's there. It wasn't until much later on we found how potentially dangerous it could be.
Well, yeah, and I think that was part of what we were cautioned about. Like, nobody knew what the potential future consequences might be. So because of that, I think it was always, everybody was telling us to be much more hyper vigilant because, again, we didn't know what it would turn into. We had no idea. We couldn't look 15 years into the future and see what we're seeing now.
So once you have that sort of that message about be careful, be wary about what's out there, you began to do things a little bit differently online. Some of this stuff I never even knew, people did. I just assumed that, a younger generation now, if you look at social media, everybody's exposing everything. It's about getting eyeballs and attention. But what did you do and what are others doing?
Yeah. So I think what a lot of us are doing, well, I think the default sort of setting is everything is private, right? Like, at least, again, like what I'm overwhelmingly seeing. Everything is, all the privacy settings are turned on. Everything is very, very highly curated. A lot of us have these sort of fake names that we use online. Like, I have one that I've sort of carried on to all the different social media platforms that I use that leaves me with this level of detachment from my real self and the self that I put online. There's been a rise of something called Finstas, which is fake Instagrams. Again, it's a much more, it can either be a much more visible but incredibly curated thing that's very divorced from who you actually are, or on the other hand, it can just be something that, like, something super unserious, something incredibly fake that you just sort of like a burner account.
I'm going to say, too, the thing I read, and I'm like, I think about the time we spend online. When I say we, I mean people, who are older. You say you flip every privacy setting on, and that's a signature of your generation. And of course, I think most people don't even know to do that.
Yeah. I think especially being a young female online, you get a lot of unwanted attention, wanted eyeballs on you. So I think that it's very much a privacy thing. Like, one of the things that sort of spurred me to write this piece was the fact that I got unwanted attention. Like, somebody found me from my real life. They found me online through channels that I didn't even know existed. And that caused me to, delete certain accounts and made me rethink how older generations think about privacy, online privacy, as opposed to us.
So, yeah, and by the way, this I should point out, this is not you. I know we said Gen Z. You have friends who basically do the same kind of a thing, right? Create this pseudonym, create this other personality. This has become widespread in your circle of friends?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is very much what is the norm, at least. A lot of my friends have fake emails that I just learned to use that have nothing to do with their names. Like I get random messages from, again, people that I don't like, whose names I don't know, but who I know are connected to real people in my life. Accounts are connected to real people in my life. So yeah, I think that's sort of what it's much more widespread than you might think. And I think that it's not visible to the outside world because the people who choose visibility very much choose visibility, and they're okay with that, and they're the ones that are being viewed. But there is very much a large cohort of us that are just lurking in the shadows, behind very much protected privacy settings, fake names, pseudonyms.
Wonder if there's a message to all of us out there to maybe be more like that. I'm not sure. You wrote in your piece, what's always struck you is just how cavalier the older generation can be about their online visibility. You still find that to be the case?
Oh, absolutely. I think that some older generations are very much, they trust things much more than we do. And I talked to one of the people that I talked to was Professor Valerie Steeves, and she was saying how in the work that she does, a lot of younger people, like younger than myself, they're asking well, why are all these adults expecting us to use these things when they're not using them? And perhaps because they're not using them as often, because they're not really exposed to this world, they think that everything's fine, that, you don't need to be as cautious as you do.
You think this generation, when I say this, the older generation will eventually kind of look at this and go, you know what, you guys were right and we should be doing this more? Do you talk to people and do they kind of understand what you're doing and why you're doing it?
I think so. Yes. Again, one of the reasons why I wrote this piece is because my employer, without my consent, posted my picture and name on his newsletter that he sent out. And I think just that willingness to do this, not even willingness, but just this, not thinking about, perhaps we shouldn't do this, is sort of the difference between older and younger. But once I had a conversation with him, he was very much he realized just the consequences and the dangers of potentially putting somebody in that situation.
So I wonder going forward, so you're a writer, you mentioned just now about your employer putting a newsletter with your info on it. Do you worry about what it's going to look like going forward in the future when you if you do end up working, for a company, or even doing this on your own, about sort of, I hate to use the word, about being found out?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's not even about anything as insidious as, being found out. I talked to one of my friends, says she realizes that it's funny, she's paranoid, but she really shouldn't be. It's not that she's doing anything bad online. It's just the fact that we don't want to have the very idea of what we are doing, what we are seeing being exposed, not necessarily being anything bad, just, this eyeballs on us is what is scary.
I wonder, and I said when I started the conversation, if you scroll social media now, and everybody's a content producer, right? Everybody wants to be out there, wants to be discovered. And that's very much in your generation, I think, perhaps more than others. That's in sharp contrast to exactly what we're talking about, though.
Yes, well, and that, as I said earlier, those are the people that are okay with that. Those are the people that want to do this. Those are the people that are doing it. Those are the people naturally who you will see, the ones who are okay with being seen. There is a very large group of us that are not okay with that. And of course he won't see us because we don't put ourselves out there. We don't put ourselves in those situations.
Well, can I just ask to wrap up here with respect to, we talk a lot about the fact that so much of the contact we have now socially is online. It's not really person to person. For you, do you find that as well among your friends who've decided to do this? Do you have social contacts other than online? I mean, what's that life like?
I think we're much more offline than people might think we are. We see each other. I mean, in person, I think we use social media as a form of communication. Like for instance, I don't really post anything online. I just use online apps as messenger apps. Again, Professor Steves that I talked to, she says that there's a whole new movement of people of young kids, teens that are having these clubs without offline clubs, where they turn off all of their communication and they just really organically communicate with each other. I think that there is a huge push to sort of go back to this more authentic version of community, more authentic version of just seeing each other outside of the screen.
It's funny you mention that, right? Because that's what we keep hearing, right? People now wanting to go offline. And we thought that would be an older generation, but you're seeing more and more of this from people in your cohort wanting to be able to get offline and do these things?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, I think just because we are these digital natives, it's not something that's incredibly novel to us. It's just a part of our lives. It doesn't necessarily dictate it.
We'll leave it at that. I thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
You bet. Take good care.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.